Kansas, Foreigner, Sheryl Crow, all coming to Parks. Can you believe that? Parks Casino, the number one casino in all of Pennsylvania, which happens to be in my native Bucks County. They've got it all. World-class headliners at the Excite Center, as I just mentioned. The open-air Liberty Bell Beer Garden, the Parks Grill Steakhouse, Bamboo Noodle House, just a few of the outstanding restaurants. It's action, excitement, live entertainment. It really is a destination. Parks Casino. Time now for the headlines from Smerconish.com, the newsletter. Okay, yesterday's survey result at Smerconish.com is closer than the Pennsylvania U.S. Senate race. We had 10,019 votes cast. TC, does that sound suspicious? 10,019.
No,
it sounds like we were right at
10,000
and then you racked it up another 19 just to give it some legitimacy.
We've discussed this. I would never do that. I once gave you the results at 9,998 because I knew if I rounded it up, you would accuse me of what you just did.
Right.
That was 1,000% the legitimate number.
Okay, listen to this. Do you believe that any of the unidentified aerial phenomena, we're now calling that UAP as opposed to UFO.
I like UFO better.
So do I. But I had to go with the lingo that the Congress is using because the Congress had a hearing this week for the first time in 50 years. Here's a little trivia for you. A half century ago, who led the last congressional hearing on UFOs?
Who?
Gerald Ford.
No way.
Yeah, as a Michigan congressman.
That's that's good trivia.
Isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, now wait, back to the survey results.
Do you believe that any of the unidentified aerial phenomena are extraterrestrial? I think we had a superb guest yesterday in Marek von Rennenkampf, who served as an analyst with the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of International Security and played a significant role in the Obama administration as an appointee in the Department of Defense. And what so impressed me about him is that he wants these matters investigated, doesn't buy into conspiracy. I mean, I had a little fun with him and asked him whether Oswald killed Kennedy and acted alone. And I asked him about a number of other, so-called conspiracy theories. His thesis was that there is something extraordinary going on out there. And we need to know what it is, but it's not necessarily extraterrestrial. I remind you that Congress had this hearing concluding that UAP could pose a threat to national security. They found no evidence of aliens. They said there are 5 different categories that explain what many have now seen sort of in the Earth's orbit. Airborne clutter. I mean, think about it. Our voices are bouncing around the United States right now because there are SiriusXM satellites that are up in the sky. My sons fly drones. They're up in the sky. So there's airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomena, U.S. government or U.S. industry developmental programs, foreign adversary systems, and other, which is a catch-all. So back to the 10,019 who voted yesterday. Do you believe that any of this is extraterrestrial? 50.72% on one side, 49.28% on the other. It doesn't matter which was which. I mean, a whisker separates our audience. And 10,019 is a really healthy sample size. Into which category are you?
Oh, 1,000%. Yes, of course. They're extraterrestrial. Of course.
You're just saying that for shtick.
What?
You don't really believe that.
Of course I believe that.
You believe that.
Oh, I'm sorry. How incredibly proud or hubris or insane must I be to think that in this entire humongous universe, we're the only people flying around?
But
no.
TC, you think that they've taken a look and they want no part of us?
I don't know what I think, but I don't know what they think.
But why would they come so close to Earth and then not stick around?
Why did we come so close to Mars and not stick around?
Ponder that for a little bit.
Ponder that. Maybe they don't like the atmosphere.
Today's survey question at Smerconish.com. Should social media platforms ban talk of replacement theory, claims of this effort to Americans with immigrants for electoral gain? We've talked about this extensively in the last couple of days, but now because I've read some, and the LA Times coverage is what I went with today at Smerconish.com. I thought I want to frame it thusly. Here's a little bit of background. In the past, the major social media companies have cited a clear connection to real-world violence as an impetus for cracking down on specific categories of extremist speech. After having long allowed Holocaust denial under the banner of free speech, Facebook ultimately banned Holocaust denial posts in 2020 in response to rising rates of anti-Semitic violence. It also banned the QAnon conspiracy movement for similar reasons, saying that even QAnon content, which didn't itself call for violence, could still be tied to a different form of real-world harm. So, should now the social media platforms say, we're not even going to allow the airing of the thought that there's a move afoot, a concerted effort by some that guides immigration policy so as to have electoral advantage in the future, notwithstanding that a person who comes here illegally can't vote in our elections, albeit with exception in an area like New York for municipal elections. So that's what I want to know. I want to know if the social media platforms should not even entertain, should not even permit that kind of conversation to take place. Make sure you go to Smerconish.com and cast a ballot on that today. I made reference a moment ago to the Pennsylvania U.S. Senate race, Republican side of the aisle. John Fetterman, of course, won on the Democratic side of the aisle. On the Republican side of the aisle, it's McCormick and Oz. TC, I said this morning on CNN early, I said I would rather be McCormick than Oz at this point, even though Oz is still leading the race.
I heard that, but I wanted you to expand a little bit more on that. Explain.
So right now, the margin is Oz by about 1,600 votes. CNN's New Day said this morning that they don't know how many are outstanding. I spoke with someone within the McCormick campaign yesterday who convinced me that there were then, at least as of yesterday when I had this conversation in the afternoon, that there were about 28,000 ballots that were outstanding. And it's reminiscent of what we saw in 2020 with, I'm sure everybody will remember, the red mirage and the blue wave. And no matter how many times I and others spoke of this phenomena where it was going to appear that Republicans had done better on election day than what would ultimately be the case. Why? Because more Democrats were voting by mail. And that's exactly what happened. So that, people who went to bed on election night some believed that Donald Trump had won Pennsylvania because he was so far ahead. But no, the Democrats were voting more.
They found those votes overnight, 2:00 in the morning.
Well,
Michael,
that's what he claimed.
They found those votes.
So, anybody who knew, we did segments on this here. We did segments on it on CNN. Anyone who understood the dynamics knew that more Democrats were going to vote by mail because Trump had said voting by mail was something he didn't want to see take place. So consequently, more Democrats voted by mail. It took longer to count the vote by mail ballots. And when they finally counted them all, and now it was Saturday after the Tuesday presidential election, now Joe Biden was in the lead. Pennsylvania secured it for him, and he was proclaimed the victor. Okay, so Oz and McCormick are two Republicans. There's not this Democratic situation going on, but it's the same principle, where McCormick has done better than Oz among people who voted absentee. So the more absentee ballots that they're now opening and casting and making part of the formal record, the better it seems McCormick is doing.
Wow.
And there's nothing that Oz can do about it at this stage, but Trump is telling him, egging him on from the sidelines and saying, hey, just go out and proclaim victory, because I think Trump regrets that he didn't go out and just proclaim victory while the counting was taking place in Pennsylvania. So that's one thing. It's going to take several days, I think, to make this all official, but don't be led to believe that it's Oz who's got this thing won because you hear from me or in the media that he's up by 1,600 or so votes, because that's not going to last, I don't think. Second observation that I want to make is this. There's a lot of talk now about what will be the impact of Mastriano on the Republican ticket. in Pennsylvania, something called Act 77 kicked in for the 2020 election. And Act 77 was a compromise between Republicans and Democrats in the state legislature. Each got something that they wanted. Okay? Democrats wanted the end of, I'm going to say this clearly. Democrats wanted there to be, there we go, no excuse absentee balloting. We didn't used to have it in Pennsylvania. Democrats wanted to have it. You don't have to go certify, hey, I'm going to be out of the jurisdiction in order to vote absentee, which is, I think, a wonderful thing. Republicans don't like it now. In fact, Doug Mastriano was campaigning, to say he's going to get rid of the no excuse absentee balloting. That's what I mean to say, no excuse absentee balloting. So Democrats wanted that, and they got it. Republicans wanted something that they got. They wanted the end of straight ticket balloting. Republicans wanted an end to pulling the big lever, right? Meaning that you could go in and you could just pull the Republican lever or pull the Democratic lever. Why would Republicans want an end to that? Because Democrats have a voter registration edge in Pennsylvania. So Republicans didn't want the opportunity for Democrats to go in and just pull a lever and have somebody like walk in, pull a lever, vote for all Democrats or all Republicans and walk out. So now that may end up being of great benefit to Republicans. Think about it. At the top of the ticket, you're going to have Mastriano and Josh Shapiro. And if the conventional wisdom is correct, that is big advantage Shapiro and Democrats, this law will preclude Democrats being advantaged by that, by having somebody pull a big D lever and it benefit everybody down ballot. Are you following this, TC? Because if you're not following it, nobody's going to follow it.
I'm totally following it.
Okay, good.
You can't just do everything in one fell swoop.
Yeah. So for example, you can go in now and you can vote for Josh Shapiro. But a vote for Josh Shapiro is not necessarily a vote for John Fetterman unless you then click Fetterman and then go to your congressional race and click, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to do it on purpose.
You got to make an individual choice in every. So maybe there will be damage control. Maybe there will be damage control insofar as people will vote for Shapiro, but then they're going to say, hey, you know what? I'm voting for McCormick. And I'm voting for a Republican for Congress. So it can still be a big year for Republicans in Pennsylvania, even if Josh Shapiro is elected governor. That's the takeaway. On the political front as well, and of course, all this that I'm providing you is backed up with stories at Smerconish.com, today's newsletter. How about this tweet from Elon Musk? Musk says, in the past, I voted Democrat because they were mostly the kindness party, but they have become the party of division and hate. So I can no longer support them and will vote Republican. Now watch their dirty tricks campaign against me unfold, and a little emoji of popcorn. I'm surprised at a time when he may or may not be buying Twitter that he would want to be perceived as so clearly on one side of the aisle or the other, because after all, and I've documented this historically, he's been very much an independent and a critical thinker. Another political story, I think we went with the yahoo.com coverage of this. Do you have sound, TC, and can you help me explain this?
I do. So this was former President Bush, and he was speaking at he made a comment during an event in Dallas yesterday. He was criticizing Russia's political system, criticizing Putin, when he made a gaffe. Would you like me to just play it, or do you want me to explain what the gaffe was before I play it?
I think it's pretty self-evident.
Yeah, take a listen.
Listen to this. Pretty self-evident.
Listen
to this.
Oh, you know what? You know that thing that I do sometimes when we're doing it on YouTube Live and we can hear ourselves?
Should I just
tell her?
The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia, and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine. Iraq, anyway. 75.
Holy smokes. W saying, replacing Ukraine with Iraq. He had to have it on the brain. I mean, what explains that?
I mean, how many times? It's like, how many times does he say the Iraq war, the Iraq war, the Iraq? That's his war. Do you know what I'm saying? That had to be, right?
But TC, then he says, hey, I'm 75. Is 75 now the line at which it's like, well, hey, I'm 75? I mean, we used to joke with the late, great Sid Mark. Remember, we used to always have fun with Sid and talk about how, like, if Sid wanted to give you a hug, you know, he was allowed to, because after all, Sid's older.
Okay, let me just tell you that 60 is not the line for anything. All right, 60 is not the line for anything.
75
so
sounds young.
Oh yeah,
like 75 is to me. 75 is too young of an age to say, well, I'm 75.
Well, maybe he was joking. That was the
if
joke.
You're 95.
Maybe that was the joke. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I mean, he clearly made a gaffe. I just think sometimes, like, that is the war that he spoke about, that was spoken about him so many times. It just came out wrong.
I have never attended upfronts. I think that upfronts didn't take place in the COVID era, but there comes a time, and it's this time of year, when the television outlets, I guess I would now say, you know, cable, conventional, streamers, they bring in the advertising world and they show them what they got. They present, you know, what is upcoming on their media platforms. Again, I've never had any exposure to this. I'm just on the sidelines, but we went with a story from Mediaite today that comes close to home for me, because it's all about CNN under new ownership and new management presenting their view of the future. Chris Licht is now the executive in charge.
Yeah, I really want to know your opinion on this. So it was.
Oh, you know my opinion on this.
It was Chris Licht, who's the new president, and David Zaslav, who is the Warner Brothers Discovery CEO, the big boss, and discussing what their visions are about CNN and its role within the whole media conglomerate. Zaslav explained to the audience that CNN will be organized to, quote, to advocate for journalism first and provide the audiences, quote, seeking more accurate information and less yelling and conflict. Then Chris Licht took the stage, outlining his intent for CNN, says this: now, the next chapter of CNN is one where we aspire to be a beacon for the kind of journalism essential to a functioning democracy. In a time where extremes are dominating cable news, we seek to go a different way, reflecting the real lives of our viewers and elevating the way America and the world views this medium. He pledged to, quote,
TC, fingers crossed and pointing to the sky.
Well, this sounds so familiar.
I mean, I'm like Doug Mastriano now. God is great.
Well, oh, stop with yourself. He also, by the way, that might be one of the extremes that Licht and Zaslav were talking about. Chris Licht also pledged to, quote, challenge the traditional philosophy of cable news, delivering programming and commentary that questions the status quo, shatters groupthink, holds our leaders on both sides of the aisle accountable to facts, and fights fearlessly to get to the truth. He also said the network will seek to, quote, reimagine, that's his word, reimagine the morning show New Day, which has struggled in the rating, with an eye toward challenging the big audience broadcast morning shows. Quote, I'm going to be honest, we are seeking to be a disruptor of the broadcast morning shows in this space, and we believe we can do it.
I don't know what that means relative to the morning show, which I appeared this morning.
Yes, you did.
I want to go back to a line that you just read aloud, and I want to say it more slowly. This is the new president of CNN. In a time where extremes are dominating cable news, we will seek to go a different way, reflecting the real lives of our viewers and elevating the way America and the world views this medium. That is a line that could have been plucked from my speech at the Reagan Library, which is still posted on my YouTube channel.
I think the way you express it is, and what I've heard you say is, the people that I see pumping gas in the grocery store, these issues, these extreme issues are not the things that they're worried about.
Right.
They're worried about their lives. They're worried, they see things in nuance, in shades of gray.
Right.
And that's how you always say
and they're not
verbatim.
Represented in the cable world.
Verbatim.
So, I mean, the idea that CNN will seek to own that space.
Amen.
Music to my ears. I love it. I love everything that I hear reported from what Chris Licht said at the upfronts yesterday.
Yeah, that was really, really interesting to me as well.
I feel like I lollygagged on a couple of stories. I assure you there's much, much more at Smerconish.com right now and in the newsletter as well. So, of course, make sure that you are subscribed to the daily newsletter. We're very proud of the product. And vote on today's survey question. Should social media platforms ban talk of replacement theory, which of course are claims of an effort to replace native-born Americans with immigrants for electoral gain? Should talk of that notion not even be permitted on social media platforms? It's a very interesting question, and I can't wait to see the final result of that voting. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching on YouTube. See you tomorrow.